Welcome, everybody. This is Starting Out Bright, and I am Noreen Savage. I'm so glad that you're here, and you're in for a treat because Kayleen West is in the house all the way from Australia. So happy to have her here. And in case this is your first time in a Starting Out Bright Zoom chat, I just want to tell you who I am and who I'm not. First of all, I am nobody official with Bright Line Eating. But the program has done a lot for me and for many others. I got acquainted in 2019 by seeing a post by my friend Lori, who said she lost 57 pounds with a program called Bright Line Eating. And if anybody had questions, they could just send her a message. And so my hot little fingers got over to the messenger as fast as they could. And I asked Lori what was the scoop. And she told me about a book by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson called Bright Line Eating. And in the book, Dr. Thompson talks about 4 bright lines that you don't cross. No sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, weighed and measured portions. And when I heard all that, I thought, there is no way I could do that. But, we got together for lunch and I heard more about the program. And by the end of that conversation, Lori convinced me to get the book and to get into one of the Facebook groups. It's called We Eat Bright with Lines. It's still going strong. Now we have a Starting Out Bright private group, which is associated with these Zoom chats, but there are many others. There are recipe groups. There's a Bright Line Eating official group. So you get the idea. There's just a lot of online avenues to connect with people. So I got in that private group and I just sat and watched transformation after transformation and reading people's stories. And for the first time in a long time, I was feeling hope. Where was I? I was at 270 pounds. Each night I'd keep my husband up all night with my snoring, and the rest of the time he'd be shaking me because I had sleep apnea. And I had swollen feet, excruciating pain in my knee. At 5'2", that was a lot on my body. And I got this hope from seeing everyone's transformation. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year, I would do what my friend Lori did. I would post on my private Facebook page and I would help anybody I could. Here we go. I just get choked up. It means so much to me that she took that initiative to lend a hand out, because I may not have seen it for a long time later. But when that year came up, when I had finished the first year, it took me 2 months to get started. It was July 2020, and I'm getting ready to post. I'm a Christian, and I feel God say to me, Noreen, you can do more than that. You could connect people. It was the time of Zooms. And here I had been watching and being inspired by all these people in the groups. If I could just connect some of them with the people who were like me, needing help and needing hope, wouldn't that be great? But who would come? Well, those who come are those who want to help at least one person do what they were able to do, overcome either addiction of food or compulsiveness, or just overcome health issues. And so that's who we have here tonight is Kayleen West. She's a phenomenal artist. She's a Starting Out Bright BLE friend, and she's my water buddy. That's how we really got connected. I put in our Starting Out Bright group one day, like, I really want to get better with water. And Kayleen, you connected with me, and it's been great to get to know you. So everybody, welcome Kayleen. And, we had a chance to talk the other day, and it was interesting because you had mentioned seasons, and this is the time of changing seasons where I am. I don't know about you in Australia, but we're going from fall into winter. I hate to say that, but so where was the season that you were in before coming into Bright Line Eating?
Oh, we did talk, and I had to process later to break it right down simply because it's a big story. It was huge here. The season we're talking about is the season we've all been through over the past few years.
You're talking about COVID with the pandemic.
Yeah, and everything that meant, all the things that happened because of that, more than that. So where were we? March of 2020, I took over a new studio. God was telling me to paint and to find space, and I needed to. My business was going well, everything was going well as far as that went, and I needed a bigger space. And I know I was meant to do it, regardless of what happened. And I signed a lease the week before the lockdown started. And for those who don't know, I live in Melbourne, Victoria, and we were the most severely locked down area of the world. We're pretty much locked in our homes for a couple of years with very little breaks.
And you mean locked right in your homes, like homes?
Yes, we were not allowed to go outside. We were one stage we were allowed an hour of exercise a day. We weren't allowed to travel more than 5 kilometres, which was incredibly traumatic at the time. I had my daughter, one of my kids, I've got a few. One of my kids was having her first baby and was incredibly sick. And she lives 7 kilometres up the road and I couldn't get to her. And she needed her mum. So I'm going to get emotional too. That song that you played at the start was so appropriate.
I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine that part so far, with having your daughter pregnant, needing your help, not feeling well, and you're 2 kilometers out of distance. Yeah. That would be just heartbreaking.
And we were too afraid to not do anything because the repercussions were pretty frightening if you didn't do what you were told. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if people have seen enough what happened over here, but it was pretty traumatic. I can only describe it as traumatic. So some people were affected more than others. And so I was in a small business in a shop that I signed a lease a week before the lockdown started. And miraculously, I survived 2 years of my lease. But God stepped me through it. There were reasons I needed to be there that I wouldn't take back. I was pretty tired when I stepped out of it. Pretty tired.
And that's what I kept on hearing too when we talked, is like this trauma, and you called it kind of like, first of all, decision fatigue, that mm-hmm. you were in such a lockdown in that way, but for your eating now to make these decisions, what was that like?
Well, my days looked like this. I had to watch hours of very negative press conferences for fear of making a mistake, because the rules kept changing so fast and rapidly, and the repercussions of breaking those rules became more and more severe. You were rather intimidated as a small business owner to do the wrong thing. And I'm not a rule breaker. And so I was, and it was and it was a constant message for me personally in my business and a lot of other small businesses. A lot didn't make sense. There were people open that were risky, and people closed that there was no risk. We didn't have much here. And retail didn't have any problems in that area. So, it was really confusing. It just went against logic to me and truth. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So trying to get my head around why the decisions that were being made were made and how I was going to operate, pay the bills, and use all that time every single day instead of trying to do something about that, taking in all this stuff that was making me heartsick.
Not the least of which there's a pandemic, which you don't know if you're going to get this virus, right?
Yeah, but I was actually very concerned about that at the start, but I prayed and God gave me a very full-on dream. And I know it was from God. Like, sometimes you really know that you know. God gives you something that it's so, you have a knowing that gives you a peace. And he pretty much showed me, just keep your eyes on me and you'll be okay. So I didn't feel threatened by that. I did at first. I was horrified, terrified.
Right.
But I had a peace that I was okay and not to focus on it. You're saying take your eyes off that, showed me a few things that made me question a few things. So it was more being drummed into me on a daily basis that I was non-essential.
Oh, yeah.
That word was used. There was very choice words used in our press and from our Premier in Victoria. Of there was a lot of labelling going on, and I was being told all the time I was non-essential, that what I did was non-essential, that what I had to contribute was non-essential, that making enough money to pay my bills and feed my family was non-essential. And as we all know, when we're told something, we're degraded enough, long enough, repeatedly, sometimes you take it on. Sometimes you start to feel that. Like, even if you don't believe it, you start to feel like, I don't know, like people are making you that, or they see you as that.
Right.
And it really messed with me, because as a child of God, that's contrary to what God says. God says I'm fearfully, wonderfully made. I'm special, unique. I have a purpose. And, that's not, I'm not non-essential. I'm very essential. We all are.
Exactly. And that is, if you're hearing that all the time, I can only imagine, having been in retail myself, and that startup time too, when you're saying you signed a lease the week before, I really can't imagine, because there is so much that goes into getting started, and to have that at your front door. And then on top of it, to be feeling like you don't even think I'm a contributing force in society. I'm not even needed or wanted, really. And that would, what you have to offer just seems like, what am I doing?
And we don't need to eat.
But yet you have to eat. You have to feed your family.
We don't need to eat either.
And pay your bills.
We don't need a roof over our head.
That's a lot of psychological stuff going on to handle all of that. I can only imagine there was some almost depression going on, or not.
Yeah, it was shock. It was shock and trauma. It brought out a trauma response in me. I've suffered trauma in my past, and it brought me pretty dangerously low. It brought me dangerously low. I swore I would never get there ever again.
Yeah.
I have a purpose, and it's not that. And so I recognised that. I did recognise that heaviness and that helplessness, hopelessness. And I managed pretty good. I mean, I went online, tried to encourage others, and, did, little tutorials, and, and tried to keep my head up, but it was hard. And deep down, I was like, as it went on and on and on, and, even other states here, I have friends and going, they're saying we walk around like nothing's happened here. And we were like in prison. And I would look at I'd be in the shop looking out the window at the other businesses that were trading that had similar stock to me, but because they had food in their shops they could open, I couldn't. It was just bizarre. But it triggered a lot of past rejection and of feeling worthless, feeling like you're less than the next person, or you're less important, or you're down the ladder, you're down the rung of the ladder. So it brought out a lot of that in me. And I think God stayed so close to me, though, stayed so close to me. But I thought I was dealing with it, but my body soon, very rapidly, showed me that I was eating it away a lot too. Like I was leaning into God and everything, but I was using food as a I didn't have I was so tired. I didn't have the energy to think. And like I said, I have this decision fatigue, because every day I'm trying to strategically think, well, what else can I do, make, sell, to pay the next light bill? Like what do I do? And my husband had a personal training business at the time too, and that went out under as well. Like, he's working now, but it was, it just looked like everything was going to fall down at the same time. And I was seeing people's behaviour was really upsetting for me. I'm very empathic. Is that the word? I really care about people, and watching people being so cruel to each other. And at some stages, people in the shop, to me, like in general, most people were beautiful. But, the times you got to open briefly, the stress was, people behaved really badly towards each other. And I was just like looking around going, what's happened to my Australia? Like, what's happened to my communities? Was it always like this, and this brought this out, So it was, all of that was a shock. It just, my whole world looked different to what it really is, I ate, and I didn't think I was eating that much, but my body just,
Hello.
And I just, and I knew
I'm not
it was a
laughing.
problem.
I'm not laughing because we walked away from that now.
Yeah,
because we're going to get
fine.
to how did you turn that around?
Yeah. So the shock point was my daughter who was the one that had the baby. She got married, and the photos come back, and she put them all online, and I'm like, is that me? Like, are you kidding? Is that me? I knew I'd put on a lot of weight, but I just thought, is that me? And I'm saying to my husband, look at the photos she put online. I'm just like, look what she's done. I just put these photos online. Couldn't she have screened them first? Not that there was any good ones. Like, I'm looking at going, I would have to be the biggest person, most ugliest person in that wedding.
Oh my God.
And I'm the mother of the bride. So I just like, but the reality hit, and I'm saying to my husband, look at that. Like, this one particular one, which I bravely shared with you all today.
Yes.
And I just go, that photographer must have been like,
this is what is called body dysmorphia. Right?
Was she looking for my before photos?
I can remember feeling like that. How? Like having someone post a picture is like, what in the world are you doing? I didn't even want to talk about it, though, because I didn't want to make more of a ruckus about it.
Well, I used to joke about myself. I used to joke on myself. I used to joke about it. I was pretty lighthearted about it, but I wasn't happy about it. And my husband's like, but babe, that is you. It's like, it is what it is, It's like, it is what it is. Okay. Oh, I didn't know it was that bad. So I'm just like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I'm so over everything. And I can't do this. Like, I just can't do this. And everything's too hard, and everything's out of control, and I'm out of control. And it really kicked in. It was annoying me anyhow, because as a Christian, I don't believe anything should have control over us. So no addiction of any sort should have a control over me. And I knew that I didn't want to eat that thing, but that thing called my name so loudly, I ate it anyhow, and I'd finish it and go, I did not want to do that. But I did it anyhow. It had control over me, and I call that a stronghold. And it's just like I'm meant to be free, that I can say no. And there's a lot of things I can't say yes or no to right now, but I want at least to be able to say no to that. I mean, and it was a mind shift from going from, well, I'm being told what to do with every single thing.
Right.
You can't tell me what I'm going to eat. To, I need to get this, I need an answer here. And I prayed and asked God, and God answered straight up. Like it was that week, I discovered Barely, which has been around for years. I can't believe. Well, I'm just going like, this has been around for years. I've done every diet under the sun. Like, why didn't I find this? It's like, God. But I did. And
timing is everything.
Yeah, that's right. I got to be ready, I guess.
So what did you do? Did you go to the boot camp or what? How did you do that?
And if I hope there's people that watch this video right now or later that watch it and you don't have much money and you think, I can't do those food plans and all the rest of it. Apart from the fact this is not really a food plan, I'm calling it a freedom plan, because it really does change a lot of things you don't expect it to change. And food's just a byproduct, like losing weight's a byproduct of this, a great byproduct. Yes. But it has a whole lot of really valuable things that we need in our lives included, that we don't know that's even missing until we get it back. So, but what I wanted to say was I did it by paying $25 on a book on eBay. And you can borrow Bright Line Eating book anyhow, or borrow it off a friend. But if I'd seen these before and after photos, I think before my sister-in-law, she was on it, and I'd seen her. There was a gap. She'd been on it. I'd watched her lose. I thought she'd lose weight on paleo because we'd done paleo before, and that's probably the most successful thing I've had. And we always regain it, Yeah. But she and we regain it because the addiction's still there. That's why. But she had lost weight at Christmas, and then I'd seen her a couple of months later at a family event, and I'm like, I didn't recognise her. I'm just like, she's just like lost weight, like, because when you get down, the changes are quite even more dramatic, I think. A lot of people didn't even notice me losing weight until I'd lost a certain amount of weight. So I just I did not recognise my own sister-in-law. So I asked her, and she was a bit, she was like weighted, and then she told me, and when she started talking about the addiction part of it, I went, I get that, because I knew that I had a carb addiction. I knew that if I ate carby foods early in the day, I would eat more through the day, and I'd be hungry soon after. I'd want more and more and more. I knew that was a physical thing that I dealt with. But when she explained about the sugar and flour and the addiction side of it, I thought, well, that all makes sense. I was sold. I was just like, I'm going to give this a go. And I didn't think I had managed too well, because I'm like, even with paleo, you could use nut flours and everything, so you could do your bakes and all the rest of it. And so you could substitute a lot.
Right.
And I'm thinking, no flour? Like none? It's like none? It's like,
that's exactly what I said.
But we can have our lovely baked things for brekkie, for breakfast. I just thought I'd give it a go for 2 weeks and see if I can get through it. And that 2 weeks really shone a light on how bad it was. I didn't realise how bad it was. I knew it had a hole, but oh my goodness, in the middle of that 2 weeks, I had one day where I felt like I had a cold sweat even. Like the addiction was like, I really want that sugar.
This is called detox. You were detoxing. So yours
but after that, it was like I was like sailing for months after that. Like I just had to get through that. But in saying that, when later on, if you just have a little bit of something, it kicks back in again. So, you know, I mean, you'll see with these interviews, a lot of people saying the worst thing you can do is go off it, like the worst thing. And it is true. It is true.
Right.
I found it very, very easy until I didn't find it easy when I started playing.
I did the same thing. For a while, it was so easy. And I got a little cocky and just thought, well, I can have a few nuts, or I can have a little bit after I put, the food away. And then it's just calling to me all the time. And fortunately, that vlog on intermittent reinforcement came out at the same time that I was going through that. And it had a name for it. Like, oh, I get it. So that really helped to put it in its place. But so you had some detox going on. You had the cravings. You understood that. But right after that, you started really losing the weight and feeling better.
Faster than I have ever lost weight before. Like, I was absolutely convinced that I had a slow metabolism, that I was a slow loser, because I tried so many things from, I was a bit cautious about diets. I didn't want to eat really unhealthy, like drastic stuff. Right. But I have in my past had like the soup diet, tomato soup and nothing else, and tried a couple of things for about 3 to 5 days, and before I was screaming. It's like, but it's just like I've lost my train of thought.
Well, I want to say though, you lost weight really fast.
Yes.
This past week, I can't remember who mentioned it. I just love this comment because she said, "Wow, you're really hanging on to those pounds, like the same weight," because I have been marking it on my sheet, and it is true. I've been the same weight actually since June, which is, I'm not proud of it. I'm just, those are the facts.
That might be me too.
My answer was, though, actually, have no problem losing when I'm 100% bright. But if I have what I call a heart day, which is not quite, my body says, oh, you're in maintenance. And so that week I will not lose. So if I'm having a heart day 1 or 2 days a week, I mean, like, I'm talking an extra ounce of protein. I'm talking like even stuff that's not sugary or anything like that. I will not lose weight. I'll just stay the same. So I'm picturing my maintenance is not going to be much more than maybe a grain, because that's about what it amounts to. And I will not lose weight. I will be on maintenance. So yeah.
Maybe not.
If I'm 100% bright, I lose weight. But
when you get down, your body thinks that body does need, I think, a bit more. So I think you might be able to eat more. Like, the lower you get, like I started to get really hungry when I got down. I don't know how to convert. It's what it'd be 14 or 15 pounds.
What is it?
I'm 7 kilos away from my goal weight.
Okay.
From my So and once I got to there, I got really hungry. Like, I was getting really, really hungry. So I started to try and work out maintenance. I thought I'll just go on maintenance for a while and get rid of this hunger. And I was able to increase my food quite a bit and still stay okay. It was actually only until I switched over to not my food. No, I didn't completely, but I had some. And then it didn't help. But my body, it's like as soon as it had it, went, I know what you're up to. I'll show you on scales. I'll teach you. I'll learn you a lesson. And so it's like, ouch. Oh, nasty.
Yeah.
So I think the lower you get, the more you can add. But it is a bit of hard thing to navigate. So I kind of went up a couple of kilos playing with that, trying to work it out. But in the process, that time, I was focusing on other things too, and my mind shifted off that, and I dropped all the habits.
Oh.
I always made sure I have enough food in the fridge so I could just weigh meat, veg and all the rest of it. I have my backup easy meals that, really, they're no thinking, grab it and go. But I dropped the journaling, I dropped the charts, I dropped,
Oh, okay. Well,
speaking those languages to myself, nobody ever starve between lunch and dinner.
So stop for a minute and let's talk about that. So you're mentioning these good habits that you got started with. So let's go one by one. What did you do? You journaled in your food journal, right?
Yes, I journaled. I did I can show you my journal. I'll show you a blank page, my journal. But I managed to actually one of the ladies on one of your podcasts, I can't remember her name, I'm so sorry. She had it on her YouTube, I think, and I picked it up, this little journal, and it's got a gratitude. So you just start the day with a gratitude. There's a goal focus. Health day, I used to put my breakfast, lunch and dinner in, there. And there's a notes section, there's your schedule, your time schedule, your top priorities, to-do list, and your review. So at the end of the day, so you bookend your day in it. So that's what I did. I didn't write forever, because if I sit down and journal, you won't see me for the whole day. I'll write for hours.
What is the name of that journal? What is the name of that journal?
I actually grabbed a new one so you could see it. I bought it off Amazon. They were quite expensive.
Life in Apples, the Growth Planner. Okay. All right. Because I don't remember that one. I think that
they last for 3 months.
Okay.
They last. Oh, and they've got other stuff in there. There's a lot of there's calendars you can set up at the front and everything. And every week at the end of every week, you have that. You have last week's review, look at your goals. I use that to track water, vitamins, if I was bright, my little sons and hearts went in there.
Is that the same picture on the front of the book? Is there a picture on the front of that one different than the other one?
This is an open one. That's it, still in the packet.
I see.
Because I bought enough to last 12 months. So they last 3 months at a time. They have stickers, which I don't use either. But, yeah, so and then you set up your next week in the other side. So I had that I was filling out.
And we'll put a picture of that in the Starting Out Bright group so that we can get the name of it.
Yeah, so they used to look like that.
Okay, but you have a lot of information in there.
Yeah, and then I started to use it to document stuff that I was learning, and it kind of got by and by. I didn't really set up the meals in advance for the week thing. And I didn't, a lot of people eat the same thing over and over again. That wasn't me. I've climatized to a bit of that now, but I'm very creative and I don't like to eat the same thing all the time. I like to eat different things all the time. So at the start, I played with everything and cooked everything and did bits and pieces so I could see what I like to eat, so that I could find foods that I enjoyed, because I didn't want to feel deprived, because I knew if I felt deprived, if I felt like it was just another thing with all these boundaries around it, that I would just kick back. So I'm just
So let me say that back to you. What I'm hearing you say is that you're reading from other people that they're eating the same thing over and over, but you know that you're the creative variety type, but you spent the time in the beginning really discovering what those things are that you would want to eat over and over so that you wouldn't feel deprived. I actually like that a lot. And I did that somewhat because I played it very simply in the beginning. I would have eggs with rice and a banana, or just things like that. But then I got into baked goods maybe 5 months in, but just maybe I'd try that one and I'd try that one. But now I feel comfortable knowing this is what I like. I feel comfortable with it and I'm not deprived.
Mm.
I want to say one thing too, that we get into like these chats with people, not necessarily on the Zoom, but like in the groups. And there's this idea of maybe you shouldn't have the bakes, or maybe, you should. And even Susan said this in her last vlog of keeping things simple. I don't know if anybody else has done this, but when I started making the bakes, I recall, like, and I still do it from time to time, but in the beginning, I would sit with this on my plate, let's say a muffin, that's a perfectly BLE muffin. And I would say before I ate it, what am I eating right now? Because if the naked eye, it looks like a muffin. But I would say, what am I eating right now? And I would say, well, I have oatmeal in here. I have 6 ounces of a variety of fruit because I always mix it up, like berries and cherries and, apples. I mix up these things. I have some peanut butter or a different nut butter in here, and I have a few nuts sprinkled on top. I would say that's a delicious, healthy food. I didn't call it a muffin. I don't know if that made any difference, that I don't have this attachment like, oh, I'm going to have my muffin. I don't ever do that. I said it so many times that what am I having? I'm having oatmeal. I'm having fruit. I'm having nuts. And it just made a difference. You know how, like you said a few minutes ago, what is said over and over and over in your head? Like in your way, it was just this derogatory, you're non-essential. You don't even need to be open. Nobody needs to shop with you, Kayleen. I mean, these are the messages. That's kind of how the opposite, like with our food, we're saying, what are we eating here? Yes, it's beautiful, but what am I actually eating? Oh, it's yogurt. It's this. It just looks like fluff, but what is it really? Whereas that other baked good stuff, that was sugar, flour, it was really garbage. My husband used to say, you're just eating like, sugar and water, and because he's never been a sweets person. He recognized it right away. Does that make sense to you? Like,
yes, but also, can I just add, because this is a classic example how we're all different. And this is where, when you get on, when you adopt something that's got to be lifelong, it's got to work for you individually. And if you're saying to yourself, this is just ingredients, I'm not being naughty, helps, that's what you say to yourself. If I'm sitting there going, well, I can eat whatever I want and I can still enjoy life because I can have this and it's healthy and, and nobody can tell me any different and it's not going to hurt me. Like, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Like, you just use the language that
exactly.
helps propel you forward, and it won't be the same for everyone.
That's
and
true.
that's a trap that you can get into. I mean, I love your group. I just, like, Noreen has the best group. And the freedom that I seek is in your group. It's like, there's no, like, don't say this, don't say it that way. It's okay for people to discover their journey the way they need to discover it. There's some people that are saying, don't ever play with your food. Don't substitute. Don't call that a substitute. You're not eating that, so you made your version of that. That got me through making my version of when my husband's saying, I'm ordering, this that's coming in the door soon. I'm going, well, I got a version of that. And I'm going to make that out of lentils and a bit of cheese and stuff on top and fry that up, stick that in the pancake. Oh, wrong.
And how did it turn out?
Real thing.
We're talking about like a pizza, right? How did it turn out?
Yeah, I didn't know if I should mention the name. But he would order it. I remember one night it was just like, I was okay. And then he meant I had pulled meat out and everything for us, and he ordered it. And I was really upset with him because I'm going, I don't think I'm that strong tonight. Like, if
Oh,
that comes in the door, I'm in trouble. And you should have given me warning, because if you give me warning, I had time to make my version. Like, not that I
okay.
had it very often, but I know tonight I don't feel that strong. It really helps to have a supportive family, and he was supportive. He didn't eat in front of me,
Yeah.
certain foods and everything for a long, long time, and that was very helpful. I tell you what, it shines a spotlight on. They soon go, gee, I must be eating a lot of that. Every time they've got to hide it, it's like, gee, I'm eating a bit of it, themselves. So, but it was,
Yeah.
the pull was very strong at the start, particularly, even now I go, I can't buy that stuff now. I've realised that I was able to do it for a period of time, and then when I've bought it, it's on my brain too much. If I allow it to slip back into, I'll just bake things for them, and I'll just buy things for them, and I'll be just looking at those things too often. That mental chatter's back, and I think I'm immune to it, and I'm not. I just, I was able to deal with so much of it, and now it's flooding back, and now it's causing an issue again. I mean, early in the piece, we went on a caravan holiday, and I discovered one of my favourite recipes on that holiday, because we got caught out not having enough food. We got there too late, set up too late, and I had to put together this concoction which we'd never put together. It was amazing. I wrote it down, so I ate it. But anyhow, we went into the supermarket to buy the supplies to get set up. And I walked into that supermarket. I just could not believe it. I walked into that supermarket going, right, I'm getting this. And my head felt like it detached from my body. It just went, like, I'm just like walking along, and it just stuck on the bread rolls. It just like, as I'm walking in, I'm going, and I had to pull my head around. I said to my husband, did you see that? And he goes, yeah. It's like, it just like my subconscious just went, ooh, haven't had one of them for a
Wow.
bit. And I just thought, wow, like that was just a thoughtless, and I saw a study on that where they flashed the images in front of people who had drug challenges,
Just
and
addiction.
they flashed an image of, I think it was cocaine or something, in front of their eyes quicker than you could actually see, and monitor their brain. The brain picked it up.
Wow. That's
So
scary.
we don't realise, even if we think we're not looking, even if we catch a glimpse of it, it can trigger our brains. So I had to just try and avoid it as best as I could.
Yeah.
I mean, all your senses change when you start eating this way. All your senses change; they come back, and your taste buds come back, and vegetables taste amazing, and fruit tastes so sweet. Like, it's just like,
Amazing. I keep
so
saying,
good.
my husband's a great cook, and I keep saying, this is the best you've ever made. And he's like, you keep saying that, but I'm like, I think my taste buds are just like coming back. Like, I
Yeah,
know it's 3 years, but seriously, they're better and better and better. It's
you really enjoy
incredible.
good food. Like,
Really.
instead of going, oh, do I have to have salad? You go, oh, I love my salad.
Well, I want to talk about salad too. I want to talk about some of your food, because part of what you do is food prep, right? And I noticed in one of the pictures that you sent me that you said wet lettuce. How do you do this? Do you just food prep?
Yeah, that was last week. I think I got off that train. I thought, right, one of the biggest things you can do is food prep. Like, food prep is the make and break, really. I mean, the more you prep, the better off you are. So even when I was busy, I made sure I at least had breakfast, so I didn't have to think at breakfast time when I was tired. So I made sure I always had breakfast for a few days in advance, 4 or 5 days in advance. And then I'd always make sure I had enough vegetables in some form, whether it be salad or, the frozen stuff you can just whack, heat up, and enough meat or protein. So we never run out, and I didn't have any excuses. But what can happen is as you're putting it together, you can just go, oh, little extra. well, you know, a couple extra pickled onions, you know, and you can start doing and compromising. When you start compromising, you end up compromising. So when you make it up to the letter, to the ounce, and I do work in, even though I'm in Australia, and I find the ounces so much easier. So any Australians on here, set your scales on ounces. It's so much easier to measure out. Because we got, you know, if we had to measure it out, it's like, you know, 286 grams or something, you know, it's just so much easier. So when it's all measured, you just grab it and don't think. So you're not making decisions. What will I have? So you're not thinking about food before food. You're not thinking about food as you're making food. You're not thinking about, will I, won't I break the rules? Like, you're not, like, there's none of that. You just pull it out. It's made for you. You can grab it, go, think, and you think about other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that deserves your thought life, not food. So the salad, I find there's two ways you can do salad that lasts a long time. You can do them in jars. Glass is the best thing for your food because glass will keep your food a lot longer than plastic. So you can get big jars and you set your wet ingredients like tomato and, you know, cucumber, anything that's wet at the bottom. You can throw your dressing in at the bottom. And as you layer up, you put your lettuce, the stuff that will be affected and go slimy, you put that at the top. Now, those glass salad in a jar will last up to a week fresh. And when you tip it out, the heavy stuff kind of pushes it all out and bang, you got your salad. What I do is I make up all my leaves. So, you know, mixed lettuce leaves, endive. I love the Chinese cabbage. That's really nice raw. That's very much like a lettuce. So I chop that all up and I weigh that out. So you can have as much as you want, you know, maybe, I mean, it's quite a lot for, you know, a gram, an ounce is a lot. I do about 4 ounces maybe of that. I separate those out and then I make a big bowl of all the wet stuff. So, and, you know, I can have, I love whole grain mustard. Always put that in my salads usually. So I throw that in with tomato and just anything I've got really. Tomato, cucumber, you'll add a little bit of pickles.
And you put the pickles in there too? Everything
that's wet goes in there and it kind of marinates a bit. And then I measure those out into their own containers. So you've got one for your lettuce, one for those, and then I put my dressing and my meat in another thing. Now, if you had beans, you could put your dressing, your beans, and all your wet stuff in together. But it's a bit harder to measure it out because, you know, you're weighing your vegetables and you're weighing your protein and your fat. So I put both fat, protein in a container. So there's 3 containers, and then I throw them all in the fridge. And then I just grab the 3 containers, you know, bang, 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 layer up. And that's what I was doing. When I was busy, I made sure there's a lot of salad stuff in there. I tried to prep it up so that I had a lot of stuff. So I might have a big thing of the wet and a big thing of this, you know, the lettuce and that, and then I only had to weigh it. And I would get my scales and a big bowl. Like, it's amazing how much is the weight that you eat. And I'd put the big bowl on the scales and bung it all in there, stir it up and eat out of the bowl. Like, I've eaten out of one of those silver mixing bowls many, many, many times. Like, you know, kids come over every Wednesday. And it's a huge bowl. Like, it's just like.
And I want to make sure what you said, something about mustard. You put
whole grain mustard.
Oh, whole grain
mustard.
Get that thing? Okay.
Yeah, it's whole grain mustard. It's kind of pickled whole grain mustard that we can buy here.
How much do you put in?
Oh, a good dollop. Like in a single serve, a good heap teaspoon.
So besides the mustard, you put that on dressing?
Yeah, I kind of mixed it all in. So it's a tossed salad. So I have the mustard run through it, and I might put a little bit of vinegar or balsamic, something like that in there to wet it so it moves through. So the thing is, I was used to, if you had mayo, you had so much mayo, like mayonnaise on things or dressings on things, because you had to wet it up. Like otherwise it kind of didn't coat enough. Whereas you just can add one of your vinegars and everything's wet and you don't need that much.
I gotta learn how to do that. That seems like a game.
That's one of our backstops. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
so I just measure out, like I squeeze out so much mayo. I don't like a lot of, I try to have things like yogurt instead of mayo, or a bit of sour cream, or something else, because mayo is so full of trans fats, and trans fats aren't good for us either. So I have been known to make my own mayo, but just not at the moment.
Well, Kayleen,
and the cold.
I can't believe how the time is going.
Oh.
I want to ask you, first of all, how much weight did you lose, like in this time? Because you got started this year, February. It was 2/22/22.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you lose from then till now?
It was about 17. I nearly lost about 18. I've gone up a bit. So I've remained for months. I've remained on a steady amount, and I'm now putting myself back into weight loss again to lose the rest of it. But I lost 17, come down about 18 kilos, but I'm 17 still off. Yeah.
Wow.
Is that right? Hang on. I was 17.6 of.
I don't know the conversion, but I saw the pictures and I know it's good.
It was it was about 200, wasn't it?
Yeah. So with all of that, what would you say are the non-scale victories that you've had?
So many. Movement. Like I really noticed, I used to feel my legs, the weight, pressure on my legs, they get tired. I'd get tired. I didn't really want to move because, I felt heavy, and I, really noticed it when I went on a holiday and started walking everywhere, and like carting my easel up hills and things, and I'm like sprinting, like I just didn't even notice my weight. So, the movement, and also I thought about it this morning. I thought, I remember too, the first thing I said to my husband, I can sleep so much better because I can get into the position that I like to sleep at. I'm most comfortable on my belly. Like I kind of sleep a bit on my belly, and my belly was always in the way. And it's like I couldn't move it. So, and my knees, I used to hurt in my knees in bed. I'd sleep on my side. And so I used to tuck a heat bag between my legs, not on my knees, because that hurt, to keep my knees, the pressure off my one leg that was so heavy on my knees. I don't have any of that now. What else? The mind chatter's huge. The mind chatter's huge. Just being free of all that noise. I mean, we've got so much noise, haven't we, guys? Like, there's just so much noise out there, and we don't need it in here. Like, we don't need it in our private space. And it just really did. And I noticed that I could hear more clearly from God. And it just brought so much peace. Not being so self-conscious.
Just all the good things. All the good things. Well, you said earlier, I don't know the exact words, but something like, it's more like the freedom plan, because it's more than the weight is the byproduct, but there's a lot of other things going on that give you freedom, the movement, being not self-conscious. I mean, whatever it is for you, which you mentioned some of them. Okay. So Phyllis did the math. 17 kilograms is 37.4 pounds. So, right?
Yeah. And it was 17.6 I've lost to date. Like I put on a couple, I got down to 18 point something or whatever, but yeah, that's what I am. Like I put a couple on when I was playing around with maintenance and when I deviated.
Yeah.
And but I've stayed like I've gone woo woo.
But
like,
just talking with you though just tells the story of like this going from this trauma where you could do what you wanted with your food, and you would think with this program so many think it's restrictive, but really it's opened you up to so many more things. And
because I mean, the food prep in itself gives you so much extra time. It's actually like one of my kids started doing it too after it. Like I was food prepping, he started prepping for his work meals and stuff. And it's like you could see the pride. It's like I did that. Like I've organised all that and I'm set. I'm set for the week. And I've got that part of my week under control. So if anything else happens, that's dealt with. So that brought a lot of freedom in itself too. But yeah, it's
exactly. And when you have that set, you're freer to think about like your art. And seriously, all of that. So here's the last question, and it's this. If somebody's listening here tonight, and thanks for letting me record this, what would you say to them about starting BLE, Bright Line Eating?
Oh, I would say to them, honestly, look, this is real. It works. It's not a gimmick. It's hard to, you would just want to evangelize. You just want to evangelize, but when you've experienced yourself, because you go, I sit there going, it took me all these years. I could have had this freedom years ago, like the difference it would have made in my life. I would say you're worth it. Give yourself a chance. Just give it 2 weeks and see what happens, right? Like just give it 2 weeks and see what happens. And give yourself a chance, because it just changes everything. And it's not just about the weight. We all come on to this sort of thing. A lot of us in desperation to lose that weight, and we hate it. And we know it's holding us back. We know it's killing us, but we don't know how to get around it. This is how. Like this is, and it's no plan. You have to sign up $300 a week for it. You can go join the communities and pay for all that rest. But there's people like myself that have done it on the back of reading the book, and which costs you next to nothing. And I must admit, I have just milked this YouTube channel. All that goodness in.
Well, thanks for that, Kayleen.
It's like, well, my sister-in-law put me onto it straight away. I was a believer straight away because I saw the results. I trusted her. She said this what it was. I didn't think it was going to be anything, other than that. Yeah. So I was straight in. But and the group. If you need a group to be connected, Starting Out Bright is just the best group. Wow. Sorry, I'm totally biased, but it's like it's. You do it your way. I would say you do it your way, but the closer you stick to that, the boundaries, the guidelines, the quicker you're going to get there, the quicker you're going to get the results, and you cannot deviate on the sugar platter. Sorry. You can't. Look, it's because that is the addiction. You've got to break that. You've got to break that barrier, and when you break that barrier, you've got the freedom. But you've got to target that. Not target your weight, like you've got to target that. That's your enemy. That's what's hurting your body. That's what's inflaming your body, making you sick. And you only have to look around. I looked around. I see, family members, people I love getting sicker. And it's just like, I don't want that for myself. I've got a gorgeous little grandson that comes here every week. I want to be the nan that's fun, that runs around and dances for an hour with him and plays out in the garden.
Yeah.
Do it. Just do it. Try it, because it's like, you don't know me, but I'm not lying.
Well, Kayleen, You have given us so much. Thank you so much for telling your story and coming out on Starting Out Bright. Thanks for being one of our loyal fans. It
Oh,
really
very much
warmed
so.
my heart to know that, the videos have helped you. And I hope that this one today will help so many who especially maybe is coming in from like a traumatic experience as you did, and then break that trauma and, replant yourself into something fresh and new. So anyway, with much love, I'm going to close tonight as I do each week. Good night. Stay bright. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, everybody. So, Kayleen, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
I would love to play 3-Question Thursday on a Friday.
All right. Oh, that's right. It's Friday in Australia. That's fantastic. You know what I didn't talk about? Your garden. And I know it's a really big deal, not just the garden, but the whole concept of the garden. So let's talk about the garden a little bit. You started one a couple months ago, but
Yes.
you've even talked about a little bit, what had happened to you. You felt like you were transplanted into a new
Yes.
life. Can you talk about that just a little bit? You're a transplant.
Yes. I feel like through this process and, praying, God's kind of picked me up and transplanted me somewhere else. And that somewhere else is getting back to basics, rediscovering who I am, what really matters to me and makes my heart sing, and where it's, not noisy. And I really had a strong pull. I felt God was wanting me to grow some food, and practically wise, I'm just going, well, because my business closed. So in March this year, my business closed, and it's been very quiet here. So I've I hope he does leave a signature. Thank you. Posty. Sorry. Oh, he's good. So it closed, and what do I do with myself? I knew I'd be painting, but I had no energy for anything really, to be honest. I just needed to rest. God told me to rest. I rested. And then I really felt I needed to contribute somehow, so I just thought, well, if I grow some food, it'll help us, and I felt God was showing me that, just grow a garden, like food garden, right? So I said to my husband, I told him the idea. Our backyard had been used as for the boys that's their dominion until now, and it had been just weeds and very short attempts at vegetable gardens, followed by no watering and weeds, and our backyard was just full of problem weeds and not much else. We had a couple of things growing, but not much else. And in the process of, I am one to absorb, just like when I started BLE, I just, watched all Noreen's interviews. I took in as much information as I can, followed some of the ladies around the internet, read up on food and, on cooking and all sorts of things, and to do it well. I like to do things well, and I don't like to spend a whole lot of investment energy into something and have it fail. I didn't want anything else to fail, right? It's like, let's do this well. So I knew from past that a no-dig garden where you just put down newspaper or cardboard and a bit of straw and plant into that with a bit of nice soil, I knew that worked well because I'd experimented with it many years ago, when it was a bit of a rage over here at one stage. That was, in the 1990 somethings. So I thought I'll do that. But in the process, I discovered about soil. Here I am thinking I knew that plants needed mulch to keep moisture in, but we fertilised, etc. But we don't actually fertilise the plants. Plants are fed by the little microorganisms and fungi and everything in the soil feeds feeds the plants, and the sun feeds the plants. So I had to improve the soil. And God started speaking to me straight away. I started growing seeds initially, and I'm watching these little baby seeds sprout up and come to life. They were nothing before, nothing. And they come to, and I'm looking at these seeds going, you look pretty non-essential, but you're going to grow and grow, and eventually you're going to produce fruit, and you're going to be very essential. And small starts, and I watched these things grow, and they were like my little baby. I was protective over them, just like, better not kill them. When I got my worms, it's like, oh, I hope I don't kill my worms.
Wow.
So God started speaking to me just with pictures, look, like this is like you, or like this is like, this. Look at the way the plant grows, the soil, all the inner world, the little things that you don't see, your inner life, what's in here. That's what feeds the plant. The plant comes up, and then it grows leaves, and it stretches its leaves out, and the sun, which is, symbolic for me of Jesus, the sun feeds that plant. The photosynthesis comes into the plant, strengthens the plant, goes into the roots. And even if you've got a plant that's dormant in the winter, that's what it does. It comes out, throws its leaves out, pulls in the sun, and that keeps it strong over the winter to come out and grow. So it was like, I need to look after the soil, and I need to look after me, my inner soil, and I need to reach out for the sun. Wow. And the sun will strengthen me. That's why that painting is behind me.
And I gotta say, let's go to question number 2. So you have an example of your painting right behind you.
I can move so you can see.
This is amazing. So
it's huge, so it's a bit of a.
And I know you're not going to say it, but I want to throw out your website too, which is Kayleen, Kayleen West, WEST.com.au. Okay. What would someone be able to find there at your website? And I know you wouldn't want to do this, but I want to know.
Well, when you reach the homepage, that is on the homepage, because I sell prints and limited edition prints of that. It's called My Deliverer. That is the first. That was why I moved into the shop to paint that painting.
Wow.
That was, it was like I had this vision. I saw everything, the size, the image, and I had to get it out of my head down onto that canvas. And so that came out of there.
What is your mode of painting? What kind do you paint? I know
that's an oil paint, but I work in all mediums. I work in pastel, watercolor. I draw, but oil is probably my main medium. But so that's on there. My shop takes you to there's art supplies and that. Now, in the US, it's a bit more tricky to get stuff, but I do ship the prints to the US and artwork.
Well, that was question number 2. So question number 3, I have to say something about restoring the pieces of the puzzle, because you mentioned that very briefly the other day, but can you tell me what that means to you?
Pieces of me. I think what all this has shown me, that I needed to go back to the bare necessities, the basics. I think a lot of us do. I think a lot of us need to go back to looking after ourselves, eating well. I do believe we all probably should have a go at growing some food. Our food is, a lot of it's terrible. It's, it's full of all sorts of terrible things. The more healthy food we can have in our bodies, better off. And we can grow things that you just can't get in the shops because it's just not viable for them to, they wilt or whatever before they get to us. So there's, so much more variety of, minerals and vitamins and stuff by doing that. So I've gone back to painting, and the garden, which is just, and getting out in the sun and moving, and that's created all that. And all those things for me personally, those pieces are pieces that I used to have in my life before the original trauma that I had. I had a beautiful garden. I grew vegetables. I painted all the time. There's a lot of things elements in my life that got stripped away then. And, I had to move, and there was all sorts of, my whole life did a big like that. So it's like not God picking up and transplanting me, not back in that life, but in a new life that has all the things that gave me joy, that made me healthy, that gave me peace. So I think it's really important for us to start working on that. Me seeing that photo, going, I need to do something about, not having the answer, but I got the answer. Once I had the answer, I thought I'll just start there. And that's where I felt I started. I was painting and that, but I had stopped doing everything because I was not in a great place.
Right.
So I think we've got to start somewhere. That's a great place to start, because that's going to affect your mind, make it clearer, affect your body, give you more confidence, like all those things that kick off other things. Growing the food kicked off other things. My kids thinking about growing these gardens and that. My grandson just
it gets contagious, I tell you. I know.
My grandson has boots here, these little tiny boots, and every time he comes to Nana's place, he just picks them up and goes, look, we're going outside, I'm going to dig.
That's so sweet. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, Kayleen, what a great opportunity to talk with you tonight. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for playing 3 Question Thursday. It's been so great to get to know you. Any last words? I'll just give you a chance.
I just hope everyone here is blessed by something there. Every time I watch one of these, I pick up a little gem, add it to my little rock pile, and continue on. I would like to say that if you're on this or go on this and you deviate and you fall off a bit, remember what they talk about being unstoppable. I think the most crucial thing is to know that you've got this tool to return to. Just make sure you do. Just as long as you keep going, as long as even if you're struggling, as long as you keep going with that in the forefront of your mind, that is my life. That I need to do that for me. And even if I'm not doing that really well right now, I'll get there, because you will. We'll have our ups and downs and stuff, and we might have, there's crystal, what they call crystal vases, but I'd love to be one, but I'm not. But I'm not going to give up. Don't give up on yourself. Be unstoppable. Be that overcomer. I love that song.
Absolutely.
We are overcomers if we believe we are overcomers. So,
so wonderful. Thank you again. Thanks everyone for being here. Good night. Stay bright.